So we're going to get started, guys. As you guys are rolling in, I just want to say thank you so much for coming. My name is Lauren Spears. I am PERQ's Marketing Event Manager. Today, we are joined by Katrina Greene. She is the Senior Property Manager at Sheehan Property Management, and she is also NALP certified. She will be interviewed by Mohammed Yasin, who is our EVP of Marketing here at PERQ. During this session, we will be able to add Q&A, so please use that chat feature, use that Q&A feature. For 45 minutes, Mohammed and Katrina, they will have a conversation and you guys will be able to add your questions. The last 15 minutes, we will go ahead and answer those. Also, during this webinar, we will have some polls, so please make sure you guys are interacting and answering those poll questions as they appear. I think that's it. Mohammed, if you want to go ahead and get started.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Appreciate it. So we're going to get started immediately with a question. We're going to go right to that before I start talking to Katrina here. So Lauren, if you want to pop up that first question, you know, the topic today is really all about leasing agent training and specifically about some of the challenges we've all faced coming into COVID and quarantine and what that's done to our businesses, but particularly to the training process of those. So we're going to leave that up for a minute. And in the meantime, I'm going to welcome again, Katrina. Thanks for coming to hang out with me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem. No problem. I last season for the podcast, for PERQ's podcast, I know you were on, and I was on the sidelines, kind of just like listening in to you, you know, chit-chatting with the CEO, Andy, and Fabian at the time. And you had a lot to say about leasing agent training, right? And I know some areas that you are very passionate about, some of which actually mirror with some of mine. So I'm kind of excited to be chatting with you this Thursday afternoon or evening or morning or whatever time it is for where you're at right now.
Yeah.
So
I identified that podcast as like the pinnacle of my career. I'm like, I had headphones, I had a microphone. I was like, this is the best day ever. And I'm now obsessed with them. So,
well, it was a highlight of our season too, really.
Oh.
It was a great conversation, and one that I know I've referred back to several times, talking about this particular topic. So thank you for coming back to actually hang out and chat directly with me instead today. That's nice. I wanted to jump in and ask questions before, and I just couldn't do it because I didn't have a special microphone like you did.
Wow.
So we're going to actually talk a little bit about pandemic and leasing agent training. I'd love if you could kind of give a little bit of a background of where you stand as far as training, what types of training you kind of do. I know you have a little bit of a mix of it, both on the on-site side, but then also you're doing a lot of like NALP training as well, trying to help out the greater community and as everyone starts moving forward. Can you just chat a little bit about what that looks like for you?
You know, I always say, and I'll probably circle back to it later, that training is a process, not an event. And so, you know, certainly I have a lot of events that I'll do, whether that's, you know, 3 or 4 days of NALP training. On the internal side, it's harder to do it like that. So certainly we have like leasing meeting days, and, you know, prior to COVID, on March 10th, I met with my leasing associates and we announced that we were starting what we call elite leasing training. So it was a 3-day program that was going to be done by a third party. And I'll talk about her a lot. Actually, she's my mentor. You know, and they were going to have more of a conference type atmosphere. They had homework they had to do to qualify for it. And it was going to be very intense and culminate in this sort of final role play presentation in front of everybody, because you have to be brave to be a leasing associate.
Right.
And that was going to sort of get them you know, ready and confident. And then 15 days later, we were in national emergency, and I was like, well, my elite leasing training, like we were so close. So, and so we really had to find a way to pivot and keep that intensity happening, even though we couldn't do it necessarily in that exact way.
Right. As you were kind of making that pivot, it's interesting you had that training so closely to, you know, this crisis situation, right?
Yeah.
We've got some results back in. It looks like we have 64% of people who say that their training did not get disrupted during the pandemic. And then 36 that say yes. That's really interesting. We're going to dig in a little bit to that as we continue to go along. Congrats to the 64% of you who are just able to fly right through. That's awesome. I hope we can add some value to you as we go along here. So you had the training program. Middle of March hits, you're in Indiana, so it's kind of like March 15-ish, I think, for us and for much of the other country. And then you're going into this format where you're trying to really enable those leasing agents to continue on. What are some of the cores that didn't really change for you, that were true to, true regardless of what was happening?
Right. I mean, we were already hyper focused on trying to maintain a balance between tech and human. And, we already listened to phone calls a lot. My leasing agents hate because I listen to
We're
their
going to dig into that one a lot while we chat today.
So I think, those things were already happening, not happening face to face anyway. So in terms of like core basics and making sure that the software and the tools in their toolbox are being pulled out and actually being used, and then coupling that with the human part of it. And I think too, with COVID, and I mean, not like this wasn't the way it was before, but everybody was so anxious and so nervous, and their emotions were just running in this crazy, high place, high alert place. The employees were feeling that way. The public was feeling that way. So I think that the human parts that we were trying to teach them all along and telling them were important became so critical. So it was like tech was critical because that was the only way that you could interact with people, but the human part was even more critical, because if we were treating people like a business transaction in a time where you just need to be heartfelt, then we would be missing it. So we were already listening to phone calls and critiquing some of that, but we made sure that we kept doing that, and actually we hit that even harder with Nikki, with my mentor. She started doing the one-on-ones with people because we couldn't do our big elite leasing training anymore. That was going to be great.
Yeah. It's interesting to touch on the human element of it. That's come up in a lot of these sessions that we've done together, right? Is it really comes back to humanity and caring about people who are going through tough times, right? You mentioned a second ago about the leasing agents as they're talking to kind of some of those potential prospects and realizing that and leaning into that just like they should have in the past, but hopefully are even more so now. What about you as a person trying to enable and train them, and realizing that leasing agent's humanity in that situation, right? What were some areas that you felt like you needed to double down on from like an empathy perspective or that sort of thing?
Yeah, and my people in my closest circle would probably say empathy is not, they don't use that word in like my top 5. And it's not that I don't have it. It's that oftentimes my composure is what blocks people from seeing it, I think. And so
I understand.
I'm sure you do. In a sense, I think that the leasing associates were more open to training right out of the gate because everything felt so uncontrollable. So it was like, we brought a laser pointer in and they're like kittens with a laser pointer. We were like, look here, do this, look here, do that, look here, do that. And I do think that there was an openness from the leasing associates to accept the help maybe differently than there was a few months ago. A few months ago, they would be like, I'm getting leases, I'm fine. And not necessarily realizing that there's an opportunity cost to missing leases. And then I think as soon as we hit crisis mode, they were comforted that I was composed, because it's one of my favorite things to be, I guess. And then it was helping them to understand their role and keeping that person calm and understanding how things were going to go and being very detailed in instructions,
Right.
delivering it in a warm way. So I really just think it trickled down. Like if I appeared to have my stuff together, even though I'm like a duck, floating on the top and kicking on the bottom,
Right.
If I appeared that way, I could show them that they could be that way for that prospect and for that resident.
That makes sense. So outside of the phone calls, which I know you did a lot of that somewhat remotely, what did your training look like? Was that an in-person kind of coaching or training or group sessions generally before all of this? Or what would that format look like for you?
So we know that everybody needs to improve on training, right? Like people always leave, I didn't get trained or, whatever. So I would say that there was already, in my areas of focus for 2020 was more live training, because they tell us that they get so much out of it. But the funny thing is, we have live trainings, and that's not really where the impact, that's not where we see impact in terms of improvement. So I think that the
Interesting.
leasing meeting ends up being an introduction of what we want to reinforce, and then we have to get better at reinforcing it. So I'm obsessed with the Snagit platform. It's like a text message
Okay.
product, and it's just screenshots, but it's video and voice, and it's very quick and easy to use. And I've decided that most of the time people don't want to listen to me for longer than, like, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. Sorry, y'all,
Yeah.
an hour today. But but if I give it to them in like 3 minutes here and 5 minutes there, and then it's not just, and no offense to software training, like the pre-recorded trainings that come from the vendor, I'm telling them, this is what the product is software wise. This is how I want you to use it, not just
Right.
how I want you to use it. So, with Real Link and key texting and active building, ILM slash, well, it's like the artist formerly known as SlopeJet. It used to be called SlopeJet. I listen to my phone calls. With all of those things, you can't teach that at a leasing meeting that day. And I find that they need to watch it over and over and over again. So I have to give them better follow-up materials. So we have the day, which is just like fun, and it's the best day ever, and we're all together. And then the work actually has to happen. Then the training happens. So that's really the launch. And I think my first couple years in a leadership role, I thought that the training day was the training day. And then I'd be like, they're not doing it. And so those are some of my failures.
No, we all have those, right? So you got Kate actually just asked a question in the chat. You mentioned a tool that you really like using.
Yes.
At the beginning of that section. Could you repeat the name of that program?
Snagit. SNAGIT. And I have it on all of my regionals computers, my computer, and I've talked about also kind of creating like a SWAT team of maybe managers or people that are more in tune with how we use our software and allowing them to have it as well. Because it's literally like click and drag, and then it records your voice and what you're doing on the computer.
Oh, cool.
I highlight my cursor, and then I shoot it off. And so oftentimes I hear feedback from my teams where they're like, oh my gosh, thanks for the Snagit, because they can't always watch it right that second, and they want to watch it over and over again. And I'm fine, and I'm fine with that. So yeah, Snagit, and it's a TechSmith product. It is not expensive. It's an annual subscription.
Awesome. Looks like Lauren just dropped a link to that into the chat. She's on top of it. Thank you, Lauren.
Crushing it today.
So I appreciate it. All right, let's skip ahead a little bit. We're going to talk about kind of like basics of training, right? And we're going to start at an area that I know is a big soapbox area for you. All right. And it's one that actually resonates with me as well. And that is the idea of listening to phone calls.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So we're going to dig into that. I vividly remember you. And I don't think we even asked you this question on that podcast, but somehow you ended up in like a 5-minute section all about listening to phone calls, right?
Not surprising.
And I was like, she's clearly very passionate about this. It also resonated with me, prior to coming into this world. I, in my early career, many, many years ago, I managed in call centers. So, listening to phone calls and coaching on phone calls is core to how we improved our employees and how we got them to be more productive on a day-to-day basis, right? So really was interesting to hear you, talk about listening to those phone calls of the leasing agents with the prospects. How long have you been doing that?
How long have I been doing that?
Yeah.
So it's 2020. I would say since 2011. And I feel confident saying that because my background, although I'm operations now and was operations in the beginning, I had some years where I worked for an ILS, very widely known ILS, and got great training there, frankly. And one of the things that my mentor would do, and she was the general sales manager for For Rent at the time, we would have RPMs, regional level people, marketing director people come to us, and they would say, Katrina, I need to cancel my ad. It's not working. And of course, being a leasing associate from before, I'd be like, well, let me tell you what's not working. It's your leasing. And not like that, not in an accusatory way, but just in an investigative way. Like, let me really see how I can, and my job was to save
Sure.
the revenue.
Yeah.
So because we had access to the phone calls, there would be nights I sat in my recliner after I put my little one to bed, and I would just earbuds in and I'd listen to calls over and over and over again. And you really just started to realize, like we would meet then with marketing folks and RPMs, and we would say, hey, I listened to 30 phone calls, and let me tell you
Okay.
what I found. Sometimes it was mismatch of availability, and we were being held accountable for not getting leases, but our people wanted 1 bedrooms or on a bulk scale, and they wouldn't have that. And then we would
Right.
casually and very softly and warmly get to, hey, would you like us to offer you a leasing training? Might not hurt. And really approached it from a service level standpoint, because that, I mean, she and I both have the same servant's heart in that way. Like, let's all just
Right.
be successful. And obviously we saved revenue from that, but we also learned really quickly what kind of training and support that the leasing team needs. And they're so important, and they don't even know it.
Right.
When I teach in ALP, and I learned this from Nikki, the first question I ask them is, how do you know what your property is worth? And it's my favorite question, because like I'll get, some of them are like $200 million.
Mm.
I'm like, probably not. And then some of them will say like a couple $1,000,000. And I always just kind of like bring it in, and I'll say, well, let's just say it's worth $20 million, which is not unreasonable at all. I'm like, you're the frontline person for a $20 million asset. We handed you the keys, and we
Right.
said, hey, everything that you do is what fuels this business. So could you get on out there and, and like, if we're not placing the value on them that way from a training perspective, we're in trouble, because they control our destiny. They control my destiny in
Absolutely.
some reason.
Absolutely.
And they have no idea their value.
Well, and I feel like a lot of people coming into like the leasing agent types of roles, it's very much a little bit of it's a mixture of a sales and customer support type of role, if we're breaking it down in those non-industry terms. But a lot of these folks are newer to their careers, or they may not have like a sales background sometimes, or that sales mentality, right? Which is very, very, very different. How are you using those phone calls to, like, in a really tactical way, coach them to get where they need to be at?
So you can,
What does that sit down look like when you say, hey, I was listening to your call yesterday and
right. Well, they, even prior to COVID, it hasn't always been a sit down with me. Obviously, my role doesn't allow me to shoot around all the properties. I wish I could. I wish that was my job, trust me, especially these days. But I'll use Snagit, and I'll play the phone call, and I'll stop it, and then I'll give feedback. And then I'll play it and
oh,
stop it and give feedback. And so when they listen to their call review, I mean, sometimes we're like a minute in before I start talking, and sometimes they just answer the phone and get like a sentence out, and I stop it. And then I might say, hey, do you remember what was going on during this call? Because the way you answered that phone, you sounded really frustrated, which can happen. So I hit it from all levels during that phone call review, but we stop and start it. And then I give them other words to use. So I might say, hey, I'm trying to get an example. We can follow up with an example of a phone call review. I've got
that'd be awesome.
that I don't think would care, but I might stop it and say, hey, you already had exactly what they wanted. Why did you start talking to them about shorter term leases? Because in effect, you just said, but if you'd like to give me less money, here's an option to do that. And I'm like, that's not the business that we're in. Sorry.
Right.
But the salesperson mind will think that, or a non-salesperson, I suppose, will think that they're catering to that person's needs because they want to give them all the options. And I'm like, it's not a salad bar. Like, you don't have to give them all the options. Like, we have a pre-made salad and it's ready to go and it's fast and here you go.
Right.
That environment. So I do those phone call reviews. I'm not sure I haven't done one live in a long time. I typically do them via Snagit. I send it to them. I ask them, to send back their feedback. They always say they're really grateful. True or not, they say they are.
What kind of impact do you see from those? You've been doing them for a while, it sounds like. You got a process in place for you got a process in place for your people on site to do those as well. And you can have the anecdotal feedback, right? Of like, thanks, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What do you see in action? I'm kind of curious about maybe some examples of you know, agents that you've seen really grow as a result of this, right?
Yeah.
What does that look like? What behavior wise?
So I find that it's better for me to, I now have farmed out the phone call listening more recently for a couple of reasons. One,
Okay.
I think that leasing associates are nervous with me because I mean, it's kind of like if somebody was going to take a tennis lesson and they've really not played tennis before, like you don't send them to Venus Williams. Like they're not going to do
Right,
that.
right, right.
They're not going to learn their best. So they work one-on-one with Nikki, and then I get to come back in after they've watered the plant for a while and it's grown, versus trying to watch every little sprout like that. That's just it's really difficult. So after Nikki does multiple call reviews with them, then I'll hop back in and then I'm like, wow, I can hear that they applied this. Sometimes I hear the actual phrases, which are fine because I continue to find that my leasing associates will say, Katrina, say it again so I can write it down and say it like that.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I've never been like a huge supporter of the script, but I'm transitioning over more to where because I was thinking people didn't want the script, but actually
Right, right, right.
they're saying to me, no, I want to say it like that. That sounded good. And now
Maybe you can put a little bit of your flavor on it, but I know what I need to start with at least.
yeah. So now I hear statements that I've heard Nikki say for a decade. And so I know that they're picking it up and they're recognizing if this works, I'm going to do it. And they're getting better at being conversationalists instead of order
Mm-hmm.
because I have a lot of order takers, but I'm starting to see them get conversational and that warms my heart.
That's an interesting way of putting it. Order takers versus conversational, right? I love that. Lauren, can you pop up? I have a follow up question for you just in a second, Katrina. But Lauren, can you pop up question number 3? Because I'm curious from the audience how many people are actually listening to phone calls as we continue on. And while we're getting results on that, you mentioned something to me the other day when we were chatting that I found super, super interesting, right? So you've been clearly listening to phone calls for quite a while. You said you farmed out a little bit of that as well, but you mentioned to me the other day that you've actually even opened up the ability to listen in on those phone calls or share those phone calls even deeper during quarantine. Tell me about that. What did you do?
So the platform, that we use, I used to just issue a username to the individual site level because arguably those people hear each other all day anyway. And, I think initially I do want to protect people's pride and their confidence. And I think for someone new to have a phone call, to feel like the phone call is being broadcast, that's not what we do. We don't play calls.
Yeah.
We play good calls, but not, calls from people that just need some help and support. I think I was always trying to protect that. But what someone told me once, like a couple months ago, we had somebody temping actually, but I know her very well. And she said, Katrina, she said, y'all are really good at telling us what not to do, but not as good at telling us what to do and how to do it and showing us. And so
Wow.
I opened up the platform because I realized that, the sort of like fear of embarrassment was actually hindering our growth because, if I talk about, like say Catherine, she's great on the phone. That's legitimate.
Yep.
That's her name. And she is. If I talk about Catherine, how great she is all the time, but I don't give these new agents the way to hear Catherine. And I can't facilitate that all the time. Like we made the managers play a game of Hungry Hippo at our last managers meeting pre-COVID, just to exhibit the fact that if you don't push your button, you get no marbles, frankly.
Wow.
And we bought enough of those games to do it at the elite leasing meetings too, to simulate like leads and follow up and such. But on the Hungry Hippo side of things, it's like you got to push your button if you want to get things. You have to get in there and listen to those people's phone calls if you want to get better and improve. So it's wide open now. Anybody can hear anything,
Wow.
for better or for worse. And I warned people, and I felt comfortable doing it because most of the agents that I had done that individual review with, I asked them one time, I said, hey, can I send this to other agents and they were all very like, yeah, go for it. So I hope we've bred at this point a company culture of permission to fail and permission to succeed. So
I think that's very much a thing, right? We have this idea of family and community, and really are these are very close knit teams that are working together all the time. So, it's kind of interesting that you went there. All right, so we've got results back. We have about 32% saying never, 25% are saying weekly, 27% monthly. So we have quite a few people, most of the group that is listening to phone calls, and we have a great question actually on the listening to phone calls that is asking a good software. So you've mentioned a couple of times, and I wanted to kind of follow up on that. Thanks for adding that question there. You've mentioned a couple of times the platform, the people, the login. I let people get in there. What are you using?
So there, many years ago, there was a company called SlopeJet that then got bought out by Rainmaker, that then got bought out by LRO, that then got bought out by RealPage. And so I think,
As happens.
I think I got the lineage there. Craig Zeichus, if I remember right, when I worked for the ILS, he started to pitch SlopeJet to, our customers. We had mutual customers. And so I was already intrigued by it before I was in a position to purchase it. So now I think it's called ILM Leasing Analytics, and it's through Page.
Okay.
Now, let me preface this. So just so everyone understands, so that would record the inbound calls through marketing lines, and destination numbers, much like your ILSs record phone calls as well. So there's ILM Leasing Analytics, and then there's ILM Intelligent Lead Management from RealPage as well. It's not intended to be a RealPage commercial, trust me. But here's what I have to do. I have to mirror it with, and I know some of you are thinking this, so it makes sense for me to say it. Some of you are thinking, well, but I get less phone calls now in 2020 than I did before because email and texting and et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
And so we also have an internal system that the agent can record their outbounds. And so we give them a little bit of power. They can hit the record button anytime during the call. So even at the last second, if they're like, that was a good one, they can hit it, and then they can save it, and they can send that in to get, some training and feedback and accolades as well. And that's called Zultys, Zultys.
Thank you for spelling that.
Yeah, I did in the spelling bee, so it's like I feel compelled to do it. So everyone knows, because I like to spell things right. So Zultys is what does that. And I'm sure that, well, ILM with RealPage will record the outbound calls if you click the button and do it. And so there's a couple different options, and I'm open. Anybody can email me anytime if you want me to spell out, some of the differences in some of those products, if you want me to.
Thanks for that
of course.
Side chat there, and thanks for the question as well. I really appreciate that one. There's another follow-up question in relation to phone calls, and we're gonna get off of phone calls in a second here, right? But it feels important, and I'm passionate about it, and I like it too. From Brandon, question says, what are things you'd look for when you were listening to phone calls? So I'm kind of curious about this idea of like specific things that maybe you see, checklists you're going through as you're going through that. And then also some, let's transition out of that on the back end into some of maybe the, I think we learned as much from the things that are going well as we do from some of the things that aren't going well, right? So maybe some areas we could look for as potential red flags.
So I equate this, someone asked me this recently, so I feel very prepared. I equate it to figure skating, because in figure skating, you have a technical score and then you have the artistic score. And so the SlopeJet platform actually grids out the leasing associates, and it'll say, like, out of their 9 prospect calls, they asked for their name 90% of the time, asked the floor plan, asked for an appointment, asked for contact information. So like it has a grid of these sort of like key technical components, and tells you what percentage of the time of those prospects did they execute that. So I look at that because someone actually listens to every call and then tallies that up for me. So I don't have to listen to information. So I kind of look at that, and then I'll go pull some of the top and the bottom on that list, and then listen to some calls. And I'm listening for, did my agent, would I have come in? Did they feel welcome? Was there any conversation other than just move-in date, floor plan? Did I'm always looking for something like positive. I tell them all, I'm like, we forget to say yes. We forget to be like, I have it. I do have it. Yes, I do. I know I can. Yep. I mean, we're not even saying yes enough. And
Wow.
so that gets really frustrating.
Why do you think that is? That feels like
Oh,
such a basic piece, but
yeah,
I
I have
can also
theories.
see missing it. Why?
So they can't get out of their own way on the phone call or even the email, to be truthful. Like there's a component to all of it. They can't get out of their own way because they're trying to um, they have it in their mind that the person has such a specific need, and that we
Hmm.
have to get down to the nitty gritty dirt, and we start saying things that we don't even have and never would have. Like, would you like a fireplace? Would you like a lake view? And they're like, yeah. And then you're like, well, actually, none of the fireplaces have a lake view. The fireplaces all face the street. Okay. Um, and so that's kind of where last week I talked to somebody about the salad bar. I'm like, we're acting like we're a salad bar and that we're going to just have all of these different options, but only
Hmm.
one of them's going to work. And I'm like, no, girl, you have an amazing salad and you sell them this salad. This is the salad we're selling today, and not so concerned about the customization. I'm not saying that there aren't some things that you can customize. I think that there absolutely are, but I think they forget they called us and they reached out to us because they were already enticed there. And I think agents they just get in, I don't know, they get so nervous that it's not going to be exact that they stop just realizing like, we have something. Like I tell them,
Yes.
I'm like, you have
Yeah.
something. I'm like, just say yes when they call. You need an apartment? Yes, I have them. I do. So I think that the positive, I look really heavily in that call for how many times did we ever give any positive affirmation? Did we ever say, I can't wait to meet you? Every
Sure.
phone call I have, I literally say, I can't wait. I can't wait to meet you. This is so exciting. I'm so glad you called today. I hope you pick us. Just, I mean, basic as that. And we don't do it. We just don't do it. They call and we're like, I mean, we do that. Sometimes they're like, name, and they'll be like, Sally. And then they'll start asking a bunch of other questions. And then they'll be like, can you spell your name for me again? And you're like, really? Sally?
Ellie. So
Um,
really just those basic conversation pieces, right? Just like
yeah, just
if I,
talk.
when we first met in person, right? My name's Katrina, nice to meet you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice to meet you. And we continue that conversation. I mean, that is something that, it's not specific just to leasing agents, right? Like I mentioned, I was in the call center world before. It is a training process to get people to converse on the phone or via email or via, text even, to
Yeah.
get them to converse that in that format in the same way that they would face to face meeting someone brand new, right? And you actually have to be even a little bit extra because of the fact that you're losing things like eye contact and body language and some of those nonverbals, right?
Yeah.
But it can be really, really, really easy if someone isn't intentionally taking time to look at it from the outside and walk through that conversation with you. Or you just listening to your tapes back on your own, right?
Yeah.
Saying, does it feel right? Back
Yeah.
to that humanity thing. Does that conversation feel good?
Was it fun? If it wasn't fun for both parties, then we're not going to stand out. We're just going to be another box with walls and windows.
Agreed. All right, so I've got a couple of questions that I'm going to hold on to the end here. Both Brianna and also anonymous attendee. I'm going to put both of yours on the side, and we're going to pull those back in at the end because I do want to take a little bit of a detour out of phone calls. I think we touched on a lot of really important things around behaviors along the way, but I want to pull back and be more explicit specifically about behaviors and training as a whole versus just the phone call aspect of it. So you mentioned quite a bit of kind of more classroom training, one-on-one training, some in person, some remote, those sorts of things. If we're boiling this all down, what would you say are the key components to being or becoming a rock star leasing agent? You touched on a lot of these right now. Pick 3 of them for me.
Okay. I have for sure. Last week I had some not so glowing feedback come back from a prospect that I think all she wanted to do was lease at my community, and somehow we managed to talk her out of it. And so I called her
Oh,
to do that
that's the
sometimes.
worst.
And I was just like, Linda, I was like, let's talk. I'm sorry. And so after I got that information from her, I sent an email to, the team, because we do just want to get better, and we do fall down. I do too. So it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them, I said, can you say to me, I did everything I know to using my knowledge, personality, and skills to help this person see my community as a great place to live. And I'm
Wow.
turning it into an oath. We're taking an oath from now on.
Wow.
I think it's going on like a mouse pad for them because knowledge, personality, and skill, and it's going to get it every time. And I don't necessarily think there's one of those that's more important. I think it's like the trifecta. I think you do want
Yeah.
to have all of that, like not product knowledge, um, product knowledge, people. Like I hear a lot of, I don't know, I'll get back to you. I don't know, I'll get back to you on the phone. And you're like, these people aren't asking they're not asking you like what the BTUs are on your AC.
Right.
So
Just
we
do you have one?
right,
Yes.
basically. And so the product knowledge of your own site and product knowledge of your competition, huge. Like in order to go to elite leasing training, they had to fulfill this huge A to Z and then shop some competitors. So knowledge for sure. I think if you're really knowledgeable, you can scare people into thinking that those other places are just a hot mess. And I'll give you one silly example, and I give it in NALP all the time, and they look at me like, what? And so I used to tell people, and this is a long time ago, like this could be 19 years ago when I started, I would bring people into my apartment and I would be like, you guys, this has a 50-gallon water heater. And so you're never taking a cold shower. And that's all I said.
That
And
sounds
then
glorious, by the way.
yeah, at the next place, they would be thinking, oh my gosh, a cold shower. I'm gonna have a cold shower. They didn't even tell me about their water heaters. It's probably smaller. I'm probably never gonna have a hot shower again. And those are like, I tell them, I'm like, those are tiny, tiny things. And once you show your knowledge, they start to trust everything that you say. And then you earn the right to sell to them at some point. So it's having the knowledge, having the skills to apply it, and then the personality to just really wrap it all up. And at the end of that presentation, just be able to say, do you want it? I want you here. Do you want it? Please take it.
Right.
That. So knowledge, skills, and personality.
Awesome. I know you've got a couple, you mentioned kind of resources there. I love the mouse pad idea, by the way, a lot.
You're welcome.
I might just steal it. We'll see. I got a text off to the side while as soon as you said that from someone on my team was like, mouse pads.
Yeah.
We're gonna do this. I know you also have some more physical format items outside of just like mouse pads and that sort of thing that you are using to help enable your team on a day-to-day basis with some of those like core philosophy items.
Yeah.
One thing, for example, that I've seen is like you have a one-sheeter they can kind of hang up in the cube or put in their desk somewhere.
Yeah.
What's on that and why is it there?
Well, I keep them by my desk too. So if any of
there we go.
If any of my leasing people are on here, and I think they are, so these are just laminated tip sheets, and I've got two of them. I've got one that says, thank you for calling. Is it standard or is it extraordinary? Because I can tell you standard is everywhere. It is like if we're all being real, most of what I talk about is standard. I happen to believe my humans are extraordinary or can become that. So it's just like 6 bullet points. This is like, did you get your name and introduce yourself? Are they asking questions or are you asking questions? We should be steering the ship. We should be steering. Otherwise, we're just, cheeseburger. You want cheese, onion, lettuce? And I'm not putting down food service whatsoever because that was also one of my favorite jobs in my whole life. Number 3 is I definitely have options for you because I can tell you we do for the most part. I said, are you saying, great, I have that. Absolutely, we can help you. There's affirmation statements because we just don't do them. And this is a reminder. May I get your email to send you and telling them why we want their information? Because oftentimes it's like you're at the BMV and they're just like phone number, email.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them why. Tell them what you're going to send them. How soon can you come in? Obviously, I made these pre-COVID, so probably need to update. That's fine. And then at the end of every call, I always wanted to say, did I answer all your questions? Because
Mm,
I think that says
so simple.
I don't want to rush off the phone. I do want to make sure that you have it. And I would tell you most of the time, there's no percentage metric, just go with it. Most of the time, they have one more or two more. I've seen phone calls that were 2-minute calls that after exit intent,
Mm-hmm.
did I answer all your questions? Turns into 4 or 5 more minutes, and that person knows that they cared. So that's my phone call one. Um, and then my email one is somewhat similar. Is it personalized? Is it specific? Is there a quote or a link to apply? Did you provide additional media? We drink all the Kool-Aid and buy all the tools for the toolbox. So there's
Right.
no reason that we shouldn't be capitalizing on that. Did you provide a timeline? Like, I always want them to say, I'll call you again tomorrow, and then do it, because most
Follow through.
most people aren't
Trust.
confident enough in their follow-up to even be making statements like that. And I also shop my competitors regularly. I have like 9 different email addresses that I'm just shooting stuff out on the regular. I mean, the last one I did was not in Indianapolis. It was in a different city. And I just sent out two email shops. I got one response 5 days later, and I got no response from the other.
Oh,
And I assume my
both of those make
people,
me really sad.
oh, you have no idea. You have no idea. And I'm not picking on anybody. I've got it. I have it too. We all have the same problems. We'll get better. Um, and then my last one, which is my favorite question, is, do you want the lease? Like, do you want the lease? Do you want it? You have to want it. At the end, like, everything that comes from key texting, from our email, from our phone calls, it should all actually point to you wanting the lease.
Yes.
Do you want it? So
Yes.
I'll share these with anybody that wants them. I did them in Canva, and if I can share a Canva template
Okay.
widely, I will. And then you
Cool.
can
Well, let's look
modify.
into that. We'll figure out if we can do the sharing the Canva template, because I love the idea. That way, everyone kind of make it their own, right?
Yeah,
You want to tweak colors, you want to take maybe a little bit of the words here and there.
right.
And then also, we'll take, I think we have the original versions of them. Lauren's going to be putting together kind of a recap meeting notes blog of sorts. It'll probably be up Friday or Monday. And we'll put a link to that in there as well for everybody. I like them. I saw them maybe sometime over the winter. Someone brought one by my desk because they had gotten it from you. I was like, this is really cool.
Small
It
but
was super
mighty.
helpful.
Small but mighty.
Training styles, right? So you got the verbal, right, going with Snagit and kind of like giving them some of that. You got some of the visual learners with the cheat sheets and everything, cheat sheets, right, or the tip sheets.
Mhm.
I've found in my past, coaching especially call center teams, that every once in a while you run across someone that appears as untrainable,
Yeah.
right? And when you dig deeper, you realize it is one of two things, but usually the latter. Thing number one is they don't really want to be there, and that's its own thing. But that is more rare than finding out when you dig deeper that it's not that they're untrainable, but maybe just that you were not approaching them in a way that was engaging to them, right? You didn't figure out their learning style. You didn't figure out what was important to them and why they would want to do this, and give them something that was personal to them. Do you have any tips as someone that does a lot of training? Any tips for getting through to the core of what's going to make it matter to the individual you're speaking with?
I mean, the short answer to that is these are supposed to be salespeople, so it should be easy. Like, in terms of a true personality, like, their motivation is money, and they want more money, so they want to hear what you say. They want to hear what you say, so that way they can make more money, which is really how I communicate it. But at
Right.
the last leasing training I had, when I had a group on March 10th, I said, how many of you are motivated by money? One hand went up. And then
Interesting.
the other hand went like partially up. And he was like, well, I'm motivated by cologne. He has a very impressive cologne collection.
That is a very interesting answer.
Yes, it is. But I was like, well, we're just going to call that money. Like, that's money. It takes money to buy those beautiful bottles. and he's also always just impeccably dressed, and it's, yeah, wonderful. But nevertheless,
The money is a means to the end for him.
it is. It is. And so I actually walked away from that terrified, because I was like, at some point, it doesn't matter how I connect with them, whether they need the one-on-one or they want a phone coaching or they want to watch a video. We're doing company standard videos now using
Yeah,
Real Pink, which
yeah,
is fun. You know, like I do want to try to give them every possible avenue, and you know, because I can't figure out what resonates with all of them, but I do think at the bottom line, they're going to seek the information if they're motivated to have it. And so, like when you said
yeah.
there's untrainable people, there's untrainable humans for sure, and then there's mismatched positions and people sometimes.
Interesting.
And leasing, you know, it's I think that leasing folks think they're coming in to be more administrative, and there are a lot of
Oh,
administrative tasks, but I've had my leasing associates sit down and highlight their job description, and they have to use one color for revenue producing items and one color for tasks.
interesting.
And I tell them, I'm like, okay, the hot pink, or whatever color they use, the hot pink is what you focus on and what you do. This is your job right here. And then like these other things, you know, are what do have to happen and have to be weaved in between. And I've absolutely had leasing associates that are more excited about the green highlighter items, and that's scary. And sometimes that comes from like, we put people in just the most beautiful work environments, you know, like my
Right.
office is like, I love my office. I think it's beautiful, but it's not as beautiful as my sites. And I do think
Your
sometimes,
sites are gorgeous, I will say
thank
that.
you. Yes, they are. They are. Um, I mean, they get in that desk, and it feels good, and it feels very professional, and it feels very you know, it just feels like it should feel, but you have to earn that desk too, and not just sit behind it and expect things to just happen, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I actually think that we do try to hit every possible avenue that's going to hit them. But if they don't want the almighty prize at the end, whether it's recognition, glory, or money, or whatever, like for me, it's about the win. I gotta win.
Mm-hmm.
um
Mm-hmm.
and the glory of that. But if they don't have something that they're passionate about, it doesn't really work. It doesn't usually work.
Wow. So true. So true. All right. So we have several really good questions out here, and we've got about 13 minutes. So we're gonna spend the remainder of our time answering questions. Work for you?
Oh yeah, I'm in. Don't
All
stump.
right.
No, nobody's.
Okay. Let's do this. Um, so we're gonna start actually. Brianna's been waiting the longest on her question. She's been waiting since before we got off on a soapbox about phone calls.
Sorry.
So we're going to back up
Okay.
to the in-person trainings. You mentioned about the fact that, which I totally agree with, that people aren't generally ready to pay attention for 20 minutes straight or an hour straight, right? Thank you for all of you who have made it to a minute
Right.
48. Really
Crushing.
appreciate every single one of you. Um, she's wondering, how do you keep them engaged in those 3 to 5 minute segments? Like, what does chunking it down like that look like? I understand the phone call aspect, right? Here's a call, here's some pieces. But let's say you are doing more of an in-person training. Like, how do you make that more manageable from an attention span perspective?
Right. So um in person, I wouldn't say that they're that small of segments, but there are a lot of segments. So if I have a leasing meeting day with my group, and just so everyone, maybe it might help just for the visual, we have 3,500 units total, 14 properties. So leasing associates and assistant managers are always at leasing training, and then if your property's in lease up, the manager attends as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I might be in a room, let's just say, of 30 people, and I probably over the course of like 9 to 3-ish have I would say probably like at least 7 segments.
Oh, wow.
So they're not 3 to 5 minutes, but they're pretty you know, quick and concise. I wish I had my last schedule here. I'd have to look at that. And we play games in between.
Okay.
We have to. We make sure that they're fed, but it's not all carbs because that puts them to sleep. Um,
Smart.
you know,
Smart.
I try to use that environment to pick and give accolades even during that and let them speak. Like I think part of it has to, like, you hate to say, well, participation, but forced participation. When I get to say, Chelsea, tell everybody, how it is that you're so successful at consistent Instagram and Facebook posts. And then Chelsea gets to be the trainer for a minute. So as much as I can during that day, I'll mentally know during that segment, which person in the room is already excelling at that. I try to make sure that the new people get to share something that they might have brought from another company. I'm never scared to let them just go with it. Sometimes that can be a little unnerving because you never know what's going to come out.
Always, right?
Right. But I think because it becomes that combination of them training, talking, quick segments, breaks in between Hungry Hippo games or something to that effect. I mean, we do the best we can, but it's a long day. They say it's the best day ever though. So it must.
Well, there you go. That's great testimonial. And something you mentioned there is a great segue into the next one. You mentioned about online posting and social media. We have a question here that says, how do you encourage, and we've got 4 total, so we're going to have to kind of pound through them fast. Okay. How do you encourage on-site team members to post regularly on social media, and how often should they be posting?
Well, I usually tell them, if I see you post 6 times during the day for yourself and not once for this property, we're going to have a conversation. So some of it starts there because I always am saying, like, you're exhibiting an aptitude. So no excuses. I did a Snagit
of course
for social media content calendar scheduling. And then actually I had my very first guest Snagit, if you will. I had a leasing associate who does excel at it, frankly, and always has. I had her show how she goes to Canva, designs the content, how she plans it, where she goes and looks for it. Some people use like RSS feeds to have stuff pushed to them that they push out. We want, I want something on Facebook daily, but I don't want crap ever, so if it's not
right?
skip a day if it's not going to be a good one, if it's going to be something that's unrelated, or especially during COVID, like you kind of had to turn off some of those auto posters during COVID because the content wasn't caught up yet, and then you were posting things that made no sense, like, what's your favorite festival? I don't know.
Here.
I want to go to one again, maybe in 2022. So
right, exactly.
I hope I answered that question.
No, absolutely. That was a really, really good one. On phone calls, so follow-up timeline after you've listened to the initial call, what should that follow-up timeline be? And is there kind of a schedule you follow to measure improvement? Yeah,
I wish I could say that that's really organized. It's not. For me, it happens if I need a pick-me-up, if it's very like on demand, if I'm looking at a market survey, like maybe a site's telling me, well, people are complaining about X charge, like trash charges or something. I'll get on and listen to calls just to see if that really is an objection that we're getting. Because they'll see everybody and it's like one person or 2 people. And I'm like, that
experience that.
Right. And so for me, I wish I had a schedule. I should make one.
We'll work on that, right?
Yeah. Full transparency. It's literally for Nikki, for the actual trainer, she schedules appointments. They'll send phone calls to her. She'll review calls and then they regroup and then they talk.
Gotcha.
And that's based on when they're available again. So I think she's probably
fitting into those priorities that they have during the course of the day.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
She's regular, I'm irregular.
There's a COVID specific one that I'm actually pretty curious about. I think I can use in my personal life as well. Yeah. Thoughts or suggestions on showing emotion behind a mask since the prospect can't see your smile? And I think this is true not only for in-persons, but also a lot of the video tours that we're doing right now as well.
Right. Well, you buy a mask like this. So there's that. Now, actually, I had one of our vendors, I sent a picture, not like in an ostentatious way of myself, but I sent a picture of me smiling and he can make a mask of a smile.
I saw those yesterday on Instagram, actually.
Yes. Denny Hamlin had a really good one. Anyway, that, I think that comes with like hand gestures. It comes with your eyes. It comes with just flat out saying, I'm smiling under here. I promise you. My cheeks are so big. You can tell, like I become, yeah, like you can tell if I'm smiling behind it for sure. I think we probably just have to tell agents. I literally considered an acting coach recently because I was like, if they don't have it, maybe they can fake it. And I think it's about over projecting and probably talking a little bit louder, using your hands more, saying flat out saying, I'm smiling behind here. I'm so excited that you're here, and not to be all Tyra Banks about it, but you can smile with your eyes.
Yes, you can. It's a thing, right?
Yeah.
We do some smizing.
Some smiles.
Okay, awesome. All right, so it's recap, a lot of stuff in here that we covered. A lot of good stuff. You kind of started with the idea of just remembering everyone's a human, right? Whether that's a leasing agent talking to a prospect, whether it's us coaching leasing agents, right? Everyone's a human. Remember that humanity, lean into that. We clearly talked about listening to calls, but some key things inside of that that really popped out to me were saying yes.
Yes.
Big one. Getting out of the way when it's time to get out of the way. If you're at the end, like, go ahead and close it, right? Mm-hmm. Positive affirmation along the way. You just did a little bit of that just now as well, just kind of talking about how happy you are, how excited you are. And then showing your knowledge. Product knowledge seems to be something that I was not expecting to get to today, but it is 100% accurate that you start with that product knowledge, you show that, but not in like an overwhelming way, not too many details, but just enough in order to earn that sale, right? Which is a great one. And then I'd love to end everything on, we're going to tie in a question here while also going back to something you said earlier, which was your mousepad quote. I'd love to end on that. So we're going to have you do that in a second. And while you're pulling that together, also everything we mentioned in here, we'll have the video on the blog probably by Monday morning. We'll send an email out with that. Inside of that blog will be video of this entire session, right? You won't have to like fill anything out or anything. Just open the blog and it'll be right there to hit the play button on. Also, Snagit, which we've talked about several times, that recording application, we'll make sure for real, we'll get that in there. So you have a link to that. We'll get the tip sheets that you mentioned in there. And then also you mentioned kind of an A to Z list about qualifying agents for that like elite leasing program. I'd love if we could kind of get that pulled into there as well. I think that could be really interesting just as a thought process of really evaluating individuals for potential success. Sound good?
Yeah, no problem.
All right, cool. So we'll get all that together. We'll get an email out with that link as soon as it's ready. And Katrina, you want to take us home with that that statement?
My oath?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
My people don't even know about this. So if they're on the call, like it's new to them too, but we're literally going to take a note that just says that after every interaction with them, I did everything I know to do using my knowledge, personality, and skills to help this person understand my community is a great place for them.
That's amazing. Thanks for jumping on, Katrina.
Yeah.
Back to Lauren.
So fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Katrina. All the information you shared was amazing. Like Mohammed said, we will have all of that information about Snagit, about the call sheets, etc., in our follow-up blog. Please expect that Monday or Friday. If you guys want to hang out with us again, we have another Lunch and Learn on Thursday, July 23rd. It's going to be about budgeting for 2021 during a pandemic. So be on the lookout for emails to sign up for that. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We had fun. Thank you again, Katrina.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.